Joining me now is Congressman Buddy Carter. He's a pharmacist in Georgia and a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. We're going to talk about your expertise in pharmacy because you know a lot about the drug supply chain here. But I first have to ask you about the stimulus bill. What's the latest, and when do you think we're going to get it on the president's desk?
Well, evidently, there's a holdup in the Senate right now. Some of the senators, particularly from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, have expressed concern about the unemployment insurance and people actually being able to get more money than what they would normally earn. And that is a concern, and it needs to be fixed. And I hope they'll be successful in getting an amendment added to correct that, what is obviously a technical problem.
Well, you saw what happened in the market. I mean, it had been up about 1,200 points at one point and then came down. It still ended the day positive, but much less so. It lost more than half of its gains because of their concern that there's going to be too much dithering inside the Beltway and this thing won't get done.
Well, look, this is a big piece of legislation.
Sure.
I mean, it's still got to go through the House, and we deserve, as members of the House, to be able to look at it as well. We've been keeping up with it, yes, but until the final text is released, we won't know what we're voting on. We've been promised that we would have a process by which we could understand and review this before we vote on it, and I think that's very important. However, I will point out that the Senate has wasted time already, and certainly the Speaker and what her shenanigans on trying to get the things added to this that she was trying to get passed slowed it down to the point that is just ridiculous. And I think that's despicable action on her part.
Well, you said that you have an opportunity to at least look at it. Will some Democrats take the opportunity to try to load up a lot of stuff in it that doesn't belong there?
My hope is they don't. Look, I'm still
you got to have a lot of hope to pull for that kind of optimism, don't you?
Well, you're correct. I wouldn't put it past some of them, but for the most part, I think they all understand how urgent this situation is. We need to help the families. We need to help the workers. Goodness knows we need to help the small businesses. I've been in the district. I've been going through the district. I see what they are suffering through, and I can assure you, nobody deserves to go through this, especially something that's not of their making, something that they don't have control over. As a small businessman myself, I could tell you, over 30 years of owning my own business, this is the type of thing that you can't plan for.
All right, let me move to the issue of India, far afield, banning this drug, chloroquine, which is showing great promise in many places. Dr. Fauci, other doctors have been prescribing it here for victims of the coronavirus. You are a pharmacist. You understand the drug supply chain more than most people. Shouldn't we be making that drug here?
No question about it. We're learning an important lesson right now, a lesson that we learned in the late 70s with our energy needs when we were dependent on the Middle East for our oil. We learned then that in order to have national security, we had to have energy independence. Now we know that we need to have pharmaceutical independence. We are too dependent on India and China for our pharmaceutical needs. China is providing almost 90% of the antibiotics that are used in this country, and that is too much.
Well, let's get to the nuts. Forgive me. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of this in terms of who's going to produce it and how soon they could tool their processing plants here in the United States to do so. Is this going to take a presidential order to get that done?
Well, I hope it doesn't. The president's done an excellent job thus far of working with the private sector and encouraging them without having to do certain orders. He has used some, but for the most part, I'm proud and proud of the private sector as well as this president of how well we've worked in a private-public partnership to get things done like this. I see companies right here in the 1st District of Georgia stepping up, producing face masks that we need so vitally. All of those, everybody's willing to do their part. We see America at its best right now.
Let me, it's not all at its best because I want to bring up the Nevada governor. We only have about 30 seconds, but he's banning the sale of chloroquine in his state because 2 people drank a substance that has a similar name but is not the same drug. I mean, doesn't he understand? Could maybe it would take a pharmacist like yourself to call him up and explain?
Well, I think this is somewhat extreme. I don't know if the State Board of Pharmacy was behind it or not, but I can assure you there are people who depend particularly on hydrochloroquine, which is used for rheumatoid arthritis and for lupus. And those people need to be assured that they can get their medications. It would be highly unfair to short them of their medications that they so vitally need just because of the hoarding of other people to use this that hasn't been proven to be effective yet. It does look promising, and hopefully it will be, but it hasn't been
Well,
proven
you're very
yet.
diplomatically avoiding criticism of this governor. What could possibly be in his mind?
Well, I just don't I don't know the situation. I don't know if he was going by recommendation of the State Board of Pharmacy or whether he was doing it on his own. I'm sure he had the best of intentions. But again, we have to be very careful that we're not limiting people who need these medications from getting those medications.
Right. Buddy Carter, Congressman, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.